1012, welcome back. We're here in Studio 61 with Richard White, who is a painter, illustrator, and photographer in Coventry. And he is also the current president of the Coventry Arts Guild. And we're glad to have you with us. Thanks so much for being here.
It's good to be here.
Well, first, tell us about your journey as an artist.
Well, almost 50 years ago, I was a graduate student at the University of Buffalo, and I got a master's degree in fine art and painting and printmaking. And on the heels of that, I started, as an artist, mostly you have to do other jobs. So I started managing an artist's gallery in Buffalo, and it was on the little campus of a nonprofit, and there was a couple other arts galleries and a photo studio and things. And the year after that was CETA. CETA was the Comprehensive Employment and Training Act, and it was government funding during a recession. And I said, I remember those WPA artists. I'd like to write a grant. I'd like to get somebody to fund artists. And so I approached this gal who was the director of the Arts Council in Buffalo, and I said, I'd like to write a grant to hire artists to do, community service and pay a little of their studio time. Maxine Brandenburg was her name. And she said, well, I'll tell you what, we can also write a grant to the county. So if you could give me 2 proposals, we'll run them by. And so I wrote a grant for the city of Buffalo artists, where we hired artists to go into community centers. And then I wrote a grant for the county where we created a little publicity agency with copywriters, photographers. We had a guy who was an animator, and we provided those services to nonprofits and did training so that when we were done, they could go on and do that sort of thing.
Well, so your career has spanned 50 years. I have to imagine there's a lot of different stories. One story in particular I'd like to ask you about. Our producer, Bill, did some digging.
Okay.
He's a big fan of Ani DeFranco.
Okay.
And one of your photos of her appears in her memoir. So how did that happen?
Well, I knew Ani. I'm also sort of an amateur musician, and I would play open mics. And I had a very good friend, Michael Meldrum, who's deceased now. And Michael and Ani were buddies. I think he was her guitar teacher, and so I met her in the circuit. And when after I opened my I was a paper salesman for a year, and I didn't take to paper sales, but I made a lot of connections in the graphic design business in Buffalo, and so I opened a photography studio, and I did a lot of commercial photography, and I did one of Ani's first several photo shoots. I have folders and folders of photos that we made together, but that one, and she jokes about it because she has a perm in that photograph, and she said, "Yeah, that's me with a perm."
Do you still keep in touch?
Not so much. She's a little bit in Buffalo, but mostly she lives in New Orleans now, and she travels a lot. And but she still has a record company in Buffalo, Righteous Babe Records.
Now, I have to ask you, so many stories, so many experiences. You alluded to a lot of the different jobs that you've had as, a struggling artist. What would you say to artists watching right now who are not sure if they should stay with it, even though it is their passion?
Well, don't count on making a living at it. I mean, if you're lucky, I've had teaching jobs. The master's degree is a gateway to teaching in colleges. So I've taught in a number of colleges, Gibbs College, Sanford Brown College in Farmington. I taught a couple semesters at Manchester Community College. So that's, a lot of artists teach. The master's degree is the ticket to get into college teaching. There's other teaching to do, so you should be prepared to be a teacher at the very least. And arts management became my, besides teaching, was my entree to bread and water.
Oh, well, Richard White, thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate your time and sharing those stories with us.
Well, there's lots more stories.
I'm sure.
Happy to come back.
Sorry, unfortunately, we don't have the time, but
All right.
great to have you here on our couch today.
Thank you.